We are going to be talking about the Wallabies and how they've lost their attack, or at least their attack coach anyway. Obviously, we've had a bit of Six Nations, the America's Rugby Championship. What else we've got going on? We'll probably talk about some rapid rugby as we have got ourselves an Aussie in the house. There's also Major League Rugby and Women's Six Nations and stuff to also talk about. But hey, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, your best place rugby predictions and opinion, and joining me after a long time away, Shane, how are you doing, sir?
I'm good, thanks, Paul. Happy New Year to you, and good to be back.
Oh yes, Happy New Year. And Stephen, how are you doing this evening?
Fantastic. Great to be back on the TDM. I think it's been over a week. Missed a couple of shows, but yeah, great to be back. A little bit of sun away down in the very fine Hawke's Bay where it gets pretty warm, so it's great to be back in Auckland, though, back home.
You've been partying, so yeah, we'll see if there's any hangovers and whether you've recovered yet from all of that. But Shane, yeah, the big news of the week is that Stephen Larkin has left, has not left the RU, but he's left the Wallabies coaching setup because of differences of opinion around how the Wallabies should attack. What's going on there?
Well, I think that if you're a rugby fan in Australia and a crazed one at that, like I am, it was expected that someone was going to get the axe in that coaching lineup, and the speculation was going to be Larkin and Gray or Larkin more Gray, and I'm a bit bemused what the differences of opinion between Checker and Larkin are, given that Larkin himself was quite a defensive coach when he had the Brumbies. To be fair, but something had to give, and he's obviously now the national high performance director, and he's looking for a new backs coach, is Michael Checker.
Yeah, we'll get into that bit. We'll get into his new role in a second. But Stephen, is this a bit damning of Checker that you've got someone who's left? As he's left, he's said basically, yeah, we had different philosophies and opinion on attack. If you're going to bring an attack coach in, surely you bring someone in who matches your philosophy, don't you?
Well, just listening before, I just wondered, is this actually a little bit of a I know he's been pretty much shifted on as assistant coach, but is this a promotion? Does he actually sit above Checker in the scheme of things?
No, so now he covers the under-20s, the women's and the sevens programme, but specifically not the senior men's.
Well, it's strange to say the least, and I can only think that Checker's got a much stronger relationship with Nathan Gray than he has individually with Stephen Larkin, because if you'd probably told me 3 or 4 weeks ago that one of the coaches will be moved on, I would have picked, given the amount of points that the Wallabies have leaked in the past, it would definitely be Nathan Gray, because let's make one thing clear. They are capable of scoring points. We only have to think back of some of those games against the All Blacks in 2018 where they scored points. Problem is they leaked a whole lot of points as well. So, yeah, really bizarre. Can only believe what they're saying in the press, that it's just personal differences and they're not gelling.
There was one interesting piece that came out about a comment that Stephen Larkin made, presumably off the record. I can't remember where I heard this from now, but he was apparently when on the Northern Hemisphere tour, he mentioned that basically they were trying to create a heads-up, players-led attack, but the players just weren't bright enough to pull it off. Now that's a bit kind of damning when you. I think I probably heard that through actually Green and Gold Rugby podcast to give them their dues. So it's. I can see why it does appear that maybe he wasn't seeing eye to eye, as you say. Maybe he lost the dressing room a bit as well. Some comment. I've seen some tweets saying Who's available that is Waratahs or Randwick? Because all the coaches seem to be Waratahs and Randwick players. So that surely means that Mark Eller's going to be the replacement, isn't it?
Well, I'd love to have Glenn Eller back.
Oh, Glenn Eller, sorry, maybe.
He's just as good. And I think from reading it, I think he's happy at England with another Randwick bloke in Eddie Jones. So.
No. He was only there as a temporary thing. He's not there permanently, I don't think.
Oh, okay. Well, Glenn, please come back. You. Could I say from the outset that there is one move that I do agree with in terms of the coaching solution, and that's having Scott Johnson as Director of Coaching above Checker. I think Scott's very, from the rugby people I know and have talked to, Scott's a real professional and he knows what he's doing. And you only have to look at what he's done with Scotland to see that he can get results with the centralised system. And that's where Australia have to go now.
Yeah, he's done very well with Scotland, but in Wales, I know he upset quite a few people before he got to Scotland. So I think he can be an abrasive character when he wants to be.
He's a pretty loyal character, it seems to me, to anybody from New South Wales. If you look at look at his two selections with Foley, and he seems to have a heck of a lot of time for Nick Phibbs as well, who, to be quite frank, if he was over this side of the ditch in New Zealand, I doubt whether he'd be a starting halfback in any of the franchises. But he seems to live a bit of a charmed life, and he's also, to me, he's very hard-headed about some of his decisions as well. Playing somebody like Pocock at 8, where I personally think Pocock would be better versed playing in the 7 jersey and just having a specialist 8 like that. And people will say to me, "Oh, well, you haven't got those sort of players around." But Scott Higginbotham, I love that guy as a player. He's got international size. To me, he's probably your number 8 every day of the week. And you get somebody like McMahon who brings a bit of physicality to this Wallaby side, but I don't know. It's just a case of I don't think he has the ability as a selector to pick his best players, and to me that's the real weakness of Michael Checker.
Yeah, it does. It's not only has he shown great loyalty to the players, but he's also shown great loyalty to coaches as well. He's been very out of this. Shane, you're getting some good support for your shirt in the chat. So Buller says you. So that's all. It's all good. The other person that's also gone is the strength and conditioning coach. I think it's or one of the performance coaches as well. So there's two people who've gone. And that's been one of the things that Checker has complained about in the past, has been the conditioning of the players and how they arrive as well. But yeah, bringing Scott Johnson in, it does seem to get the structure right. But one of the things they said about Larkin was that they were supporting him while he finds another head coaching role. Is Larkin really this prodigal son that is? It looks like the ARU have got him slated to be a Wallabies head coach at some point in the future, come hell or high water. Is he that good? Because I'll be honest, his record at the Brumbies wasn't fantastic, and his record with the Wallabies hasn't been so great. So why do the ARU like him so much? Any ideas, Shane?
Well, Steve Larkin will always be one of the great 10s.
Come on! Yeah, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm not questioning his playing ability. It's his coaching.
No. I just wanted to add that. I thought a couple of years ago he was the heir to the throne post the World Cup. I don't believe he is now, to be absolutely honest. But the answer to that, Paul, is I think he is a reasonable Super Rugby coach. He did win a couple of conferences for the Brumbies. He did take them to a couple of semi-finals as well. So he does have a coach, but he's not ready for the Australian role post the World Cup. It means that I think Australian rugby have to go internationally to find the next coach of the Wallabies, to be honest with you, because we just can't keep doing it the Australian way as much as we Aussies like to say that we do like the Australian way a lot. We've got to find a new way to do things and change our rugby for the better.
Okay.
Shane?
Go on. Sorry.
Shane, I was going to ask, just in terms of his coaching record, I know the Brumbies are the most successful team out of Australia, holistically, record overall. Was there maybe a case that the fact when sides were added into this competition from Australia, do you think maybe he didn't always maybe have the cattle at the Brumbies as well? You know, when guys were going offshore, when a few eligibility rules were changed as well?
Well, it's interesting you say that, Steve, because I've always believed that the Brumbies work well with the cattle they've got, and they somehow, year after year, manage to surprise a lot of people with what they've got. For instance, I used 2017. Now, if you get 6 wins, you win a conference, which they did. but the fact is, the Brumbies did that with the side they had compared to what the Waratahs had, and the Waratahs were terrible that year. Larkin seemed to have got the best out of his players, and without rambling on too much, there is something about coaching the Brumbies, and there is something about the Brumbies that they're known as in Australia as the New South Wales Rejects when they started, but by far and large they muscle up against the big two states, that's for sure.
Yeah, we always thought he was going to be okay, because I think his debut season was 2015, where he got the Brumbies through to a semi-final. I think they won about 9 out of 16 games. By the way, guys, this is not off the top of my head. This is information that I've got in front of me. No, just in case the listeners are out there thinking, or watchers, I think, gee, this guy's good. Yeah, so you know, it just shows to me he does know how to get the best out of players. At 44 years old as well, I think he's probably got still a little bit of time, if you know what I mean, maybe to develop more. And,
he's got another 20 years as a coach, hasn't he? Let's be honest.
Oh, very, very much so in terms of age, and you know, as we know, Cheika's pretty much he will go through to the World Cup unless something dramatic happens. And how many games have the Wallabies got before the World Cup? Probably like the All Blacks, probably about 4 or 5 games, I would imagine. In terms of pre-World Cup games. So I think either way, I think Cheika, unless he does, it probably his only way out is probably either make a final or win a final, and that's probably unlikely. Sorry, Shane. But
it's true.
I'm willing with Australian teams. You know, despite on how they're going, I'm not willing to write them off, because they are a tournament team.
Yeah, we didn't expect them to make the final last in 2015 either, did we? Let's be honest.
No, very, very, very much so. And they rocked up again. And I think, correct me, I stand to be corrected, probably outside the All Blacks.
Sorry.
3 World Cups the next.
Yes, Dad. All right.
Sorry, I think Shane's got a visitor. So just quickly, yeah, I mean, Hugh, Larkin got his team to play to their strengths. Yeah, and that's true. And that's there is that. Interesting one by Simon Hughes, a coach that will be available post Rugby World Cup, Warren Gatland, for Aussie coach. That would be an interesting one.
Wow. Yep.
I don't know. That's the Aussie's record with the last Kiwi coach wasn't an unmitigated success, but in retrospect may have been actually a lot better than people are suggesting. But yeah, Warren Gatland, that would be an interesting one, and yeah, at the moment he is up for grabs by the sounds of things.
Well,
go, Steve.
No, Shane, you go ahead, mate.
I respect Warren. I think he did an amazing job with the British and Irish Lions in New Zealand 2 years ago. And most Aussies were actually cheering on the All Blacks, including myself. He's done a fantastic job with Wales. And you only have to see how they have improved over the last year or so. But I don't know if Warren would want the Aussie job, to be honest.
Well, so I mean, there's no rush after the World Cup, because the first time the Wallabies will be playing post Rugby World Cup will be in July. So there's a 6 month, probably about an 8-month gap between the end of the Rugby World Cup and their next Test match. So there's plenty of time. And one of the things that she said is that, look, there's no rush to replace Larkin, because again, the Wallabies don't play again until July time anyway. So there's no mega rush to get his replacement in. Now, obviously, he has to do prep and stuff. It's not like he turns up the day before the next Test match and can do his job. But yeah, there is time. I know people have gone, it's Rugby World Cup year, she hasn't got time, do it now. It's like, yeah, calm down, guys, it's not that urgent. But something else that's happening that we had a quick chat about pre-show was Rapid Rugby. Shane, do you want to give us an update as to where Rapid Rugby's at? Because it's supposed to be kicking off in a couple of weeks, isn't it?
Well, it was supposed to, but it's been postponed till the 2020 season now. For the life of me, I don't know why that is. I haven't read too much into it. Naturally, a lot of fans were excited that there was going to be a second competition to watch. I understand there'll be something similar to World Series Rugby, where the Force play some exhibition games again. So we'll have some rugby of some kind in the West, but where's this competition gone for another year? I don't know.
It seems strange that apparently meant something about not having TV deals, and I'm like, well, look, you're supposed to be this billionaire who's supposed to be philanthropic. Just drop some cash for season 1. You don't have to worry about TV deals. Major League Rugby is paying to be on TV, for example. So he could have done that, but he's decided not to for some reason, and hence it's been postponed. The rumour that came through that one of my Twitter friends sent me was that that the Rebels are due to be back in Super Rugby in 2020. So there you go. So that comes from a journalist at a major news outlet in Australia, apparently. So yes. So that's my little rumour that's going around now that the Rebels, not the Rebels, the Force are going to be back. The Force will be back in 2020 in Super Rugby, which how that's supposed to fit in, I haven't got a clue. But yeah, that's the word on the street, as the guys from the Rugby Report card would say.
Gee, that's not going to make him a popular man with some of these other franchises. He was basically looking to get together. I remember we discussed those particular teams, and I know there's a couple of players, or minor 10 cup players, who have signed with teams, and all of a sudden they've got no contracts. So I think they'll be looking for minor 10 cup contracts in 2019.
Yes, absolutely. It is it seems very strange. I mean, there was a guy, and I've gone blank it was, where I saw him announce that yes, he was leaving some pretty decent role, and that he was heading over to Hong Kong to work for Hong Kong Rugby. And you're like, oh, cool! You're obviously going over there because Rapid Rugby is a big thing, and Rapid Rugby is going to be out of Hong Kong, and now suddenly his job's going to be a lot smaller than it was previously going to be. Have you turned your aircon on, Steve? Shane?
Sorry?
Have you turned your aircon on?
No.
Okay. Sounds like it.
Yeah, it sounds like something in the background.
I'm pondering that information about the Western Force and a potential return to Super Rugby. The only thing I can think of that would, if they go down that conference line, is if they would scrap the Sunwolves and put the Force back in the Australian Conference. That would probably be something.
Logistically, that's the easiest way of doing it. But it would be a shame to have invested all this into Japan, with rumours that Japan will be joining the Rugby Championship as part of the new World Rugby Nations Championship, to then pull the rug on the Sunwolves it wouldn't look like very good joined up thinking, let's be honest.
No.
Well, the other thing that could be possibly happening, maybe they're adding another couple of teams. Say, for example, being new to the Pacific Island team, and I know originally they were looking at maybe basing one up in Hawaii. We've also got the Fiji. Is it the Fiji Drua?
Yep.
That did really well on the NRC last year. So maybe that's an option as well, a standalone team. So there's definitely going to be a lot of speculating with that sort of news coming out.
I think there's at the moment there's a lot of news that stuff is happening and meetings are happening about strategy and about structure going forwards, but there's very little very little news of actual substance of what's being discussed in those meetings. And the more that we have that, the more speculation we get, and the more we're going to be going down this route of, oh, I think this, oh, I've heard that, and maybe they can do this, maybe they can do that, and it's not all that positive necessarily. Talking of positive stuff, Wales did rather well in the second half, didn't they?
They did. That was unbelievable. Yeah, exactly. That game, watching the first half, looks like France had basically had control of that game, and it was for France. I definitely think it was a game of two halves where they were basically holding on to the ball, but the heavier the ball got, or the more precipitation that came in, all of a sudden they started making mistakes. And credit to Wales, they lifted their game. I thought their high kick game in the second half put a lot of pressure on France, and their line speed was very good as well, as seen by the try that was the boy, who's the big boy, Vahamahina, throwing that loopy pass that was picked off by George North, and that was pretty much all she wrote, wasn't it?
It was. I mean, yes, Wales were much better in that second half. I mean, they were awful in the first half, but France really did implode. We had Huget doing some fumbling the ball over his line. We saw. We'll talk about Ireland, England in a second, but we saw plenty of it there as well. That there does seem to be, whilst there's some wonderful attacking play from back threes, there's some pretty poor covering play by back threes in the Six Nations this year so far.
Yeah, that'd be fair.
Scotland, Italy. I think pretty much we all saw that. Anyone who watched that, suddenly Scotland decided to basically go home about 10 minutes before the end, and Italy ran in a couple of late tries to make the scoreline look vaguely respectable. Otherwise, it was an absolute one-sided affair.
I'm going to say quite interesting. The boy that picked up 3 tries, Blair Kinghorn, he was a bit of a star for Scotland under 20s at the 2017 under 20s World Cup, where he played fullback, and he looked a pretty good prospect then, but I didn't see him as a winger. But listen, he took all 3 chances really well, and he's a big boy.
He did, but his problem in Scotland is that they've got this guy called Hogg, who's rather good at number 15, and so
he's immense.
So if he wants to play international rugby, he's got to play it on the wing because he's never going to get a chance at fullback. To be fair, when you've got a Lions, I mean, the only reason that Stuart Hogg didn't get 3 Lions tests is because he broke his cheekbone in one of the warm-up games. So it's he hasn't got much choice really but to go there. A bit like a Dame Helmet Petty in that kind of sense. Much happier in that 15 jersey, but because Folau is there, his only way he can play for the Wallabies is on the wing, so he has to go play on the wing. We're seeing that a few players get forced around like that.
And they were missing, they're missing a couple of players as well. The Scottish, they weren't completely at full strength as well, although they are starting to get a line-up. I know Sean Maitland wasn't there, who's normally a regular starter on the wing, but also one of the big locks, the 2 Gray brothers, I think Richie Gray normally plays in the middle row, wasn't there. So they're just starting to show that they've got a bit of depth. I suppose the only real concern for Gregor Townsend will be the fact that they leaked 3 tries right at the end in the last sort of a quarter of that game. But you sort of look at the score 33-20. It's convincing enough, but I suppose the question we all still ask ourselves, and we obviously got the news with regards to promotion relegation that there will be no promotion relegation in the Six Nations, is what are Italy doing there?
That's a good question.
Well, yes, they've definitely improved at club level, and one of the things I found really intriguing is Ben Darwin made a comment, and he doesn't do this. He runs a lot of stats around connectivity of teams,
analytics.
Yeah, Gainline Analytics. That's one. And he because it's a consultancy, the algorithm he uses is proprietary information. So he doesn't. So he doesn't. He quite often keeps quiet about individual teams and what their connectivity is. But one of the things he actually said was that Italy, he reckons Italy are about to show a step change in improvement because of, and I'm assuming that's because of his stats and his algorithm that says that they've got a very connected team. In the fact that they have two professional sides in Italy, about 90% of their players play in those 2 teams, and that it's going to start paying off, but probably not in time for every World Cup. I wouldn't have thought.
No, I've got to say that Italy certainly they played a very, very good high tempo pace. I thought they played pretty well, and particularly in those last 10 minutes, they can show they can attack a bit. Even though Scotland had a man in the bin, and were lucky not to probably have 2 with the amount of penalties they gave at the end. There is a question there with the rapid improvement of Georgia as well. Could they fit into a promotion relegation system? Because people like what I've seen from Georgia, they're improving.
Okay, I'm going to go against the wind on Georgia. Until Georgia beat a Tier 1 team, I think we should always keep quiet about them because they've never beaten a Tier 1 team. It's not like Japan who beat South Africa, not like the USA who beat Scotland recently, not like Fiji who beat France recently. Georgia have never beaten a Tier 1 team, and they lost to Italy in November. So, I'm just going to disagree on that one.
I thought you were going to say I'll rest my case after that, Paul. You're probably when you put it in that light, you're very much right. But I'm sort of curious. In recent times, has Italy played Georgia?
They played in November in 2018.
And the winner was?
Italy. Italy are a Tier 1 team. I say Georgia have never beaten a Tier 1 team. That was Italy's most important game last year. Absolutely. If they lost that game, then can of worms.
I suppose you stack up a good argument there, simply in terms of the two professional sides. Is that Treviso and Zebra, are they the two professional teams out of or Zebra? What do they call themselves? Zebra?
Yeah, Zebra and actually Treviso have renamed themselves as Benetton, but yeah.
Benetton. I suppose when you've got two professional teams, you sort of look at Georgia, no professional team there, even though they probably have their own competition in Georgia itself. Just in terms of junior rugby, I wonder how their junior rugby's tracking, because I often look at a team like Italy and they're very mechanical. On the surface they do most things right. The forwards carry really well, but sometimes what I look for, and sometimes I see it in Argentinian rugby, and I'm starting to see it again in Argentinian rugby, is these brilliant backs who do the instinctive things. I don't know if you guys remember Argentina in the early days. They were pretty much known. It was Hugo Porto and the other 14 guys, but they also had two very brilliant midfield backs, a guy by the name of Fabian Tunes and another guy with the most brilliant name in rugby, Diego Cuesta Silva, who was their centre, and these guys were absolutely brilliant backs. And we're starting to see that with Argentina as well. We saw some really brilliant outside backs from Argentina. I forget the name of the chap that scored the brilliant try against the All Blacks down in Nelson, but it was an All Black. We'd all be jumping over fences to celebrate how good a try it was. And I just wonder if there's, in Argentina, you can see that there's younger guys coming through the sevens, through the 20s. What's their junior rugby like below 20s? How is that tracking?
Well, the under-20s Six Nations is going on at the moment, and it mirrors the Six Nations. So Scotland played Italy, and the score was Scotland 22, Italy 32. So
wow.
So there you go.
Well, I suppose that one, I think the jury went out and came back in very quickly.
And just because we're talking about Ireland beat England 35-27, and France beat Wales 32-10 in that. So across those three games, the exact opposite of the senior Six Nations results.
I would imagine the Irish were pretty buoyant after that under-20s win, thinking, gee, we're in a very good place at the moment, not just with our senior rugby, but our junior rugby. And then...
and then what happened, Steve? Let's be honest, I'm a tad biased one way. So give me the neutral's view.
Well, I basically was away, and I'm an absolute doofus. I actually forgot I had Sky Go, but I forgot my password, so I couldn't watch the game live. But fortunately, I had taped it, and I viewed it this afternoon, admittedly knowing the score. But listen, first of all, I've got to say, what a great game of rugby. What a superb game of rugby. Probably not as one-sided as the score eventually ended, but man alive, you've got to give it to England. I thought from pretty much the opening whistle, and they started with a plum. They actually started with a real neat set piece move where they changed the direction, took it up through the middle with Tuolangi, and just found some space down the left side, and they never looked back. Their line speed was impressive throughout the game, and tactically I thought they were very good. They put low kicks in behind Jacob Stockdale, which resulted in a try, and they put a lot of high kicks toward Keith Earls on that left wing, and he's not a tall man, and they put a lot of pressure in and around those areas. But man, they're real heroes. Not often you can say that, but the jerseys 1, 2 and 3, damn outstanding for England.
Yeah, absolutely, and they definitely targeted Earls with a high ball and kept the high ball away from Stockdale, because his counter attack is definitely nasty. I think Henshaw hasn't played at fullback for a couple of years, and that showed in his positioning. I think, unfortunately for him, that he got caught out occasionally because of that. And but it's interesting, isn't it, that we look at one of the criticisms we made about Wales was that basically their tries came from Huget's fumble, an intercept, but if we look at how England scored their tries, again, it came from an error by Stockdale, which allowed Daly to score, and I think also I'm trying to think if Slade's first try there was an element of fortune, but I think we should give both teams a bit more credit around the pressure that led to those things. They weren't entirely by accident or entirely lucky tries. That they came out because they've been making lots of pressure. And the big one that got mentioned a lot was this dominant tackles that was mentioned in the Ireland England game, which was something like 9-38 or something from memory. Actually, I don't know why I'm doing it from memory. I've actually written it down over here. 7-37 it was after 53 minutes of dominant tackles, which just if you're getting smashed back over the gain line, if you're not breaching that gain line like Ireland weren't, it's going to be a long night at the office for the halfbacks. Shane, did you see these games?
I didn't see the Ireland-England game. I obviously saw the French and Welsh and the replay of Scotland and Italy. But if there's one thing I know about Ireland, and I thought when we beat them last year, we're going to try and seal the series up, but Ireland will bounce back. If I could, who have they got next? Who have all six sides got?
It's Scotland, Ireland, Italy, Wales, and England, France.
And I think Scotland, Ireland will be a very interesting game. I think that'll be the game of the round. And it'll be interesting to see just how much Ireland will bounce back from that, because they will. And I think they'll come out swinging.
Ireland travel to Scotland for that game this coming Sunday, so that is going to be a very interesting game. Just on the English though, what impressed me at the half-time whistle, they didn't run straight off. They basically stayed in a huddle, and you can just see they were amped. They wanted. I think if they had it their way, they would have carried on that. They would have just said to the referee, Jerome Garcias, and I've got to give Jerome a real compliment to the way that he handled that game. I thought he was fantastic. Well, he really was. He let it flow. His instructions were very clear, and most of the contentious decisions were accurate. And even credit to the New Zealander that was involved, Glenn Newman, the TMO. I thought both decisions very accurate.
I was happy with the referees across all the games. Did they make mistakes? Absolutely, they did. We've got a couple that come up. When one of them is that it looks like Itoje's hand is under the ball for Ireland's first try when they power over, and there was a questionable clear out by Tuolangi as well. And there were some other things that were kind of mentioned, but look, these guys are human, and overall happy with how the games were all called for my mind. They were basically each ref was consistent with how they called things within the game, and that's all we can ask for.
Sorry, Steph.
Sorry, Shane, you go.
I thought the standard of refereeing was good in the two games I watched. Yeah, I can agree with that, Paul.
I was going to say, Paul, if you look at some of the key one-on-one matchups, Sexton Murray, the Youngs, Farrell, no question, the two English boys pretty much got the better of their opposites. And if you individually picked across the board, individually, I think each individual man was probably better than Ireland at the end of the day. It was great. Listen, Manu Tuolangi, I think I might have asked you, is this guy capable of returning to his best? Well, I think we saw evidence of that pretty much happening, and I just wonder with the likes of Tuolangi, Billy Vunipola in the side, and well and truly inserted, if England are a much, how can I say, a much more attacking side with those two players in there in terms of game line advantage, and in terms of our men in the front row, the other Vunipola in the front row, Marco, I thought, wow, I don't think I've seen as good a game from a prop in a very, very long time. I thought he was outstanding. I mean, so I thought Sinclair was very good, but I thought some of Vunipola's defensive hits on the advantage line were absolutely brutal. And we saw a couple of other little nice touches to his game. We're starting to see the little offloads as well. And it was good to watch. Shane, I'm not too sure if you're aware, there's a journalist by the name of Phil Gifford who writes in New Zealand, and to be honest, I was embarrassed to be a New Zealander when I read this article. He actually said he thought it was an average game of rugby. A lot of guys were walking around. I must have watched a different game this afternoon. Seriously.
The Six Nations, guys, has actually rebuilt a lot of my faith in international rugby. It's been a fantastic competition, and I know that the great way to start it with France and Wales, and Wales come back, and France being so gutsy until the very end, having a chance with the last player so to win it. I really enjoy watching the Northern Hemisphere sides grow and develop, and over the last couple of years, I think, certainly, Steve, that journalist should say something else rather than that, because the standard of rugby's been magnificent.
Absolutely. If you look at another sport which is probably similar in terms of the number of countries that play it. If you look at international cricket, like I'm a great believer, cricket is nowhere near it used to be in the 80s and 90s when you had the great Australian sides, the West Indian sides, the English side was strong, Pakistan was strong. Obviously, it's a very useful Indian side at the moment, but in the whole, I actually think the game's weak. But whenever I've got to a debate about it, and I'll get back to rugby because this is the driving maul. I think at the moment there's a real improvement. I would love nothing more than to see Australia get right back up there, because we just need those contests, those great Bledisloe Cup contests to come alive, to bring it alive again. I mean, it pains me to say that as a New Zealander, but it's exactly what we need. And there's enough people playing rugby in your country at club level, and there is a market for it, to get themselves back on the feet. So no, loving the Six Nations, and can't wait for this weekend to watch this weekend's games, especially that Scotland Ireland game.
Yeah, I think for me, sort of through 2016, 2017, there was a feeling of kind of like, okay, which of these teams are the least worst in chasing the All Blacks? Whereas last year it suddenly was a matter of, wow, which of these teams are the good teams that are chasing the All Blacks, rather than it being the least worst. And suddenly we had 3 or 4 teams in Ireland, Wales, England in the November piece at least, South Africa as well. You could all see had real potential and were really going places. Scotland at home as well, there was definitely be much more positive around it over the sort of from the middle of last year onwards.
If you could imagine, Paul, the All Blacks doing a full tour of Britain, once upon a time, if you were playing Scotland, Ireland, Wales, England, you're thinking, probably that England game's the tough game. That's always the tough one to beat. But the All Blacks always would have backed themselves to knock over the other 3 teams. But right here, right now, and alive, those would all be very, very tough games, and we saw a bite-sized example of that on the All Blacks last tour. And even a team like the Australians, I always, as an All Black supporter, I always get apprehensive about playing the Wallabies. Like if we were playing Italy, I'm never concerned about it because I think I know the result before we play those guys. And I mean that with great respect. If you're English, you understand English and you're watching from that part of the world. But with Australia, you never know sometimes. They are capable of that one-off performance. They're probably just not capable of putting it together all the time. And I think the other thing is, another team really on the rise is also Fiji. They showed that against France last year when they beat the French in Paris. And that, let's face it, that score that day probably flattered the French. And you felt a bit sorry for Fiji at the beginning of the tour, but I think they came together for 3 days and then played their first international. That was a heck of a tough ask for those guys. So they are getting better, no question.
Yeah, absolutely. From memory, they lost to Scotland, didn't they, in that opening game, quite comfortably. But then improved because they had time together. All right, we need to have a quick chat about Hugh's question, which is, who are the new championship favourites after Ireland lost? So, Ireland have lost, and now they have to go away to Scotland and away to Wales in that last game. So they've got two tough. Their two toughest games are away from home in those two. If we look at Scotland, they're now going to host Ireland and Wales, but they have to travel to England on that last game of the of the round. And Wales, I think, which are the other ones that we can talk about, will be hosting Ireland and hosting England. So England are going to travel away to Wales and then host Scotland. So out of those, and looking at those fixtures, you've got to say Wales hosting England and Ireland is good, but that performance on the weekend doesn't put you with much faith that they're actually going to do it, though, does it?
I mean, also, I haven't quite got on the Scottish hype train yet. Great videos they were too, by the way.
Well, not were. They're back out again. So check.
Better check that out.
Check that. Check Gareth Love's. I think it's Gareth Love, or it's definitely G Love on Facebook. His one on YouTube, unfortunately, has been, if you're watching from the UK, I believe has been some sort of blocked in the UK for some reason by YouTube, so you can only watch it outside of the UK. So G Love has done the latest Scottish hype train video, so go check that out. Obviously not right now, Shane. So you can talk now. No. Don't go and watch the video right this second.
So if we're talking favourites, I'm not a betting man, but England have got off to a very good start, and I still believe it'll be out of England and Ireland for the championship. It's England's to lose.
Stephen, where do you think the favourite is now, or the cup's going?
Can't disagree. If we sort of look at the games coming up this weekend, Scotland and Ireland, I think Ireland will bounce back, even though that's going to be in Edinburgh. Wales away to Italy. I think Wales, with their good start, that kind of puts them in a little bit of a box position. I mean, to say 2-2 scoreboard pressure, they'll win that game, and then France travel to England on Monday. Based on what I saw, I think England are capable of putting France away comfortably. So if you sort of move forward, all of a sudden the first game of the third round becomes a huge game, because that's Wales at home versus England. If you ask me point blank who I think Wales are capable of an upset, but they won't. And I think that could be the game that wraps it up. Pretty much wraps it up for England.
Wow, so in Ireland have got some four players injured out of that game. Scotland have also lost WP Nell, who anchors their scrum. So yeah, I can't see either. I can't see Ireland or Scotland really pulling through on this. I think it is between Wales and England, and I think that home advantage for Wales in the Millennium Stadium is puts them as favourites now by the fact that they host. They have a nice game to sort out their issues and their performance this weekend against Italy, and then getting England and Ireland at home. I think is we'll see Wales over the line.
Yeah. Oh, England will just take massive confidence out of what happened the weekend. I think Shane will pretty much agree with that.
Yeah. Well, you two are both going for England. I'm back in Wales. There you go. Simon says in the chat, Ireland don't do too well when they're cocky. They got it this one wrong. I'm not sure. And he also says Argentina need a second team in Super Rugby. That one I would definitely agree with. That Argentina need that second team in Super Rugby for them to progress. Talking of Argentina, at the weekend they beat Brazil rather comfortably. Chile lost to the USA by a big margin, and Uruguay sneaked past Canada in the America's Rugby Championship. So I've seen a few comments that say, look, if USA are going to win these games so easily, they should move on to the next tournament. I think that's a bit harsh, and also the fact that it's not that long ago that they were this kind of lower tier 2 side, and that they should remember that and not get too carried away with themselves, and should be helping teams like Chile and Brazil and building up that America's competition, because I think that could be big in future as well. The big one for me though the weekend was also Major League Rugby. I don't know how closely you guys have been following that one, but I managed to get 3 out of 3 wrong in my predictions at the weekend. 2 big upsets with Glendale Raptors and Seattle Seawolves, the 2 finalists from last year, losing at the weekend. So keep an eye out for Major League Rugby. It looks like it's got hyper competitive over there as well.
A lot of I was about to say, Paul, New Orleans Gold certainly wouldn't have picked them to be on top of the standings after a couple of rounds. I sort of took the opportunity to sort of look at their team list, and there's not a lot of named players. The only real player I actually saw there is the guy Hugh Bryden, who's played a little bit of rugby in New Zealand here for Manawatu, a bit of Mitre 10 Cup rugby, but I think he's also a USA international as well.
They overcame Toronto Arrows in the opening weekend, who are the expansion team, showing some nice use of their width to pull out a big half-time lead, but then let Toronto Arrows come back. And then, as you say, saw off Glendale Raptors this weekend. I had some problems with buffering, so I didn't get to watch that game, but that was a major upset. Now, sure, both sides are missing their American internationals because of the America's Rugby Championship, but I would have expected much more from Glendale, even on the road. That is a very impressive win by Nola.
We've just seen some incremental improvement from the USA, and it's got to be a good thing. Once again, a good thing for international rugby.
Absolutely.
How many teams are in the comp, Paul?
So this year there are 9 teams in the comp.
9 teams.
Yep.
There were going to be 10, but LA Coast couldn't get their act together.
Yeah. And it's a good spread around the country as well. You got obviously the New Orleans Gold, who are leading the competition. Obviously they're from one of the southern states, San Diego, from out on the coast. We've got Seattle, a little bit further north. Utah, who's a little bit inland a bit. Then we've got my team, Rugby United, New York, from the out on the east coast. And we've also got Houston, a team from Toronto Arrows. So see a little bit of a Canadian influence in that team, Paul. And Glendale Raptors and Austin Elite make up the teams. So little bit interesting. Austin Elite, they always seem to travel pretty well, but sitting at the bottom of the table at the minute.
Yeah, had two tough results. Utah Warriors, I was expecting to struggle this season because they lost players like Glenn McGrath and Paul Lasike, their 10-12 axis, and McGrath was that senior Ireland player who did a lot of work off the pitch as well as actually running the game for them. But hey, they turned up and still managed to turn over Austin Elite, so that was impressive. I think one of the things you got to remember is that Seattle actually plays in the Canadian competition, not actually in the USA competition. Previously, before Major League Rugby came along, so I've gone blank as to what the name of the province is just north of them. Unfortunately, sorry, I've gone as to the league, but they used to actually be an American side in a Canadian competition. So Seattle have had quite a few Canadian players last season. And in Toronto, and you've basically got two sides that got quite a lot of Canadian players. So we should see an improvement from Canada over the next couple of years because of that. I would have thought.
And they call themselves the Seawolves as opposed to what's the NFL team? Is it the Seahawks?
That's right.
From the same city, yeah.
And there's been some clever marketing up there because the Seawolves. The Seahawks, they've then got a Major League Soccer team up there, an ice hockey team up there, and they all play in the same colours. Slightly different designs of jerseys, but they all play in blue and green. So there's very much that feel of, hey, these are our Seattle teams, a bit like a national side, but for Seattle, sort of feeling that they're all in this together. And there's lots of cross-promotional between the different clubs, the different sports. They don't see each other as sort of competing for the fan base. They're all part of this sort of community up there, and it's worked very well for them from their marketing. They even actually had on the news, on the weather forecast, they had percentage chance of rain, and then on Saturday it said 100% chance of the Seawolves playing. So some
very good,
some very good marketing. So, chaps, thank you very much for joining me this evening, Shane. Good to have you back on. With Super Rugby coming up, I think we'll be talking a lot more over the next few months. So let people know where they can have a chat with you on the old Twitter.
Yes, thanks, Paul. I'm at Schoolermate, SCOOLM8 on Twitter, and come and talk rugby.
And Stephen, thank you very much for joining us. I actually don't know you on Twitter. This is the scary thing here. I should. Is that something that you lurk and you don't give it out, or are you publicly there?
I might just make a couple of profile changes on it, and so I think I was about 13 when I put it up. No, not really. I'll just change it up, and once we get things up and running, I'll put my
you'll publicise.
Twitter profile. Yeah, I'll publicise my new Twitter profile. But no, just speaking of Super Rugby, looking forward to it. And listen, I hope I wish that the Australian side's showing all the best this year. We need these guys to be at their best and install a bit of confidence. So whether I talk to you, I don't really know. But you got a hot tip from Australia?
The Rebels.
The Rebels. Yeah. I think so. I think they've had a few players gravitate to them, so I'm hoping that they go well.
What's your tip for New Zealand, Steve?
I don't think you have to go too far past the Crusaders.
Yeah.
Simply because of their roster, but I am actually expecting a real improved performance from the Blues this year. I know we say that every year, but I think you just sort of seem to be hearing good things out of the camp, and it just appears that they've got a little bit more depth than they had in the previous seasons. They had a good pre-season win up in Kaikoui, which is up in the north of New Zealand, in Bay of Islands the weekend, and a good crowd of 4,000 turned out, and it was a good hangout from what I understand. So
beautiful part of the world too.
They're definitely up that way, and we're hoping upon hoping. The drought's got to end sometime.
And we should have touched on Super Rugby pre-season because South Africa had a sellout double-header game with in their new Marvel jerseys. Now, word on the street is that she probably gave away half those tickets. But hey, look, if you're filling the stadium, that's all that matters. How you get the fans in there, I'm not really too fussed. But so yeah, great turnout.
Yeah. Oh, and like I say, some of these games. Now there was a game. The Hurricanes played a game. They play a game, Shane, in the middle of the country where a guy put in the middle of a farming. I think it's a Huna somewhere or somewhere like that, which is Shane just said where, which is probably down the lower part of the Northland, the very rural area. And they get massive crowds turned up. You can arguably say they probably had a bigger crowd turn up there than turned up to watch the final 50-over one-day game between New Zealand and India down at the Basin Reserve at Wellington Stadium on the weekend. So there's always a hunger for rugby out there. Not with great respect, not everybody's a cricket supporter. So I just sort of love the fact that there's a bit of rugby around. Just saw a little bit of the Sevens in Sydney. On and off, I was a little bit surprised they were down on numbers over there, just watching it on TV, but it's great. To be honest, I'd watch rugby at any level.
Yeah, we'll have a chat about Sydney Sevens tomorrow night. But I don't think it's next to Huna this year, but you're right. They do move it around. They're sponsored by Tui beer. So Tui, yep, if you fancy sponsoring us, you can do too. If you want to know what it's like going to that game, just search DrivingMaul Ekatahuna or Bust. And you can read my story of my trip there from a few years ago, where I took the overnight sleeper coach from Auckland to Wellington. So yes, an interesting trip for me to go see that game. Yes, something like 24 hours travel to try and get to a game in New Zealand. A bit stupid, but there you go. Go have a read of that. It was a fun trip. Thank you, everybody, and back tomorrow night with the All Blacks edition. Don't forget to subscribe. Become a Patreon, click on the videos that will be there for the recording because the YouTube AI says you'll love them and all of that kind of wonderful, lovely stuff. And join the Bucket Hat Club and you can get one of these hats. It's the only way to get them. Check out patreon.com/DrivingMaul for how you do that.